Hi guys, this is Revi Goldwasser, job hunting expert, and this is tip number 6 in the application and background check. And this one's a really good one: credit, criminal, drug testing. I kind of just clumped that all together. So here's the deal. You're gonna know if they're gonna do that whole part, because on that application and background check, there's gonna be a big old release that says, we're gonna do background check, including credit, criminal, drug testing. They're gonna need your social. They're gonna need your date of birth. They're gonna need your personal information. So most large firms, I don't know about the smaller firms, but I work with large firms and really kind of industry standard guys, they're gonna be checking. So let's kind of dissect each of those 3 things to just have you relax and know that everything can be addressed and resolved. So I don't want you to panic if you've got some stuff back there. It's something that we can address. So let's talk about each one of them. First of all, before we actually get any further, I'm a strong believer of being honest about it. So if you're working with recruiters, my standard question, anytime I speak to anybody, I'm like, okay, everything is great, you're gorgeous, you're wonderful, background is awesome, but is there anything you need to tell me now before we start this whole process? Because at the end of the day, whatever you share with me right now, I can help you. And if I'm prepared, I can prepare my client, you can also prepare. Most of the time, there's not an issue, but sometimes there is. So let's talk about the issues that can come up. So first one is criminal. Criminal, guys, is gonna depend on what the criminal is, A, and B, when you did it. So let's talk about criminal. Let's say, by the way, very common, I hate to say it, but very, very common is a DUI. I would say out of every 10 candidates that I speak to, 1 usually has a DUI. Now, if I'm working for FedEx and FedEx calls me and says, Revi, we need drivers, UPS needs drivers, you have a DUI, it ain't gonna happen, right? So obviously that's gonna make sense. You're not gonna be able to apply for a job as a driver if you have a DUI, guys. That's kind of logical. But if you're in a professional sphere, like let's say in my industry, financial services, having a DUI is okay. It's not great, but it's okay. Guys, we're people, we're humans, things happen. So if you have a DUI a month ago, it's not so great. If you have a DUI from 6 years ago, it's much better, right? If you have 3 DUIs from 6 months ago, not so good, right? If you have, let's say, some form of a misdemeanor from a long time ago, it's okay. So it really depends what the criminal issue is, when it occurred, and what you did. I just had a candidate the other day. This was so surprising to me, but what I loved about it is that he was honest. And that's the other tip I want to share with you. This is about you being honest with me, you being honest with the employer right at the beginning. I promise you, if you tell me or tell the HR people or that first manager that you meet with, it probably won't even ever get mentioned again. Because you know what's more important than anything else when it comes to this section? Being honest. Being honest. So if you kind of address it right at the beginning, number one, if there's an issue, no problem. Everyone stops doing the whole process and no one wasted their time. But if they're okay with it, they're going to be like, you know what? I like that this guy told me right at the beginning. Because remember, the interview process, they're interviewing a lot of people. They're not even doing the background check unless they're really interested in you. So that's my biggest tip. My biggest tip is tell me at the beginning. So what happened with this candidate? Wonderful gentleman working 15 years in compliance. So screened him, talked to me, was great for the role. And then I said to him, is there anything you want to share with me? Right away, he tells me, he's like, listen, Revi, when I was 17, turning 18, I worked for a retail store. I gave my friends my employee discount. They used it. I got busted, and I happened to turn 18 right when that happened. I was thrown in jail one night, given a 90-day probation, and it's on my record. It's like, wow. First I thought about it. I'm like, wow, that's, theft, misdemeanor, whatever the case may be. But he told me right at the beginning, he's like, look, I was really young. I made a mistake, and we addressed that. I ultimately was found not guilty, and he told me about all that. He even had the charge discharged. And by the way, that's another tip you need to know. Usually after 3 years, guys, you can have any issue on your criminal record expunged. I believe you should use an attorney, but you can figure that out. But after 3 years, get rid of it. It doesn't need to be there anymore. And a lot of people don't know that. And they'll tell me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they never got it expunged. You physically need to have that done, which I strongly recommend you do. But this guy, I'm like, I like that. He was honest. He was to the point. I told my client from the beginning as well. And it was all good. Listen, he was young. He made a mistake. I can understand that. So you see how that can be addressed, okay? So that's number one, when it comes to criminal. Credit. So people are like, oh my God, Ravi, I have like the worst credit and this and that. I'm like, calm down. This is not, we're not buying a house and we're not buying a car with this. An employment credit, guys, is different to a financial credit. They're not pulling up your FICO score. This is not what it's about. But what they are looking at is your financial situation. So if you're working at a bank and you're dealing with thousands of dollars and I pull your credit, bankruptcies, liens, judgments, like, major bad credit from like the last 6 months ago, you're under financial duress, right? You're under financial duress. I can't put you in a compromising situation at the bank that you're going to be dealing with thousands of dollars. That's why a credit is done. Obviously, we just came out from a really bad credit crisis, market crisis from the 09 to the 2012 area. A lot of people had bad credit. And they just, again, if there's anything you want to tell me right away. Listen, we lost our house, we lost our job, things were really bad. It's understandable. And if it happened a few years ago, it's okay. So the credit becomes an issue of what the role is for, just like the criminal, right? Criminal DUI driver, bad credit from 6 months ago, bankruptcies, liens, and judgments from the IRS, can't work it in the bank. If it was from a long time ago, guys, and with credit, it does take 7 years before things even fall out and you can repair your credit, it's okay too. It's okay too. Just be honest about it. They're just really looking at that, and you have to address again whether the credit situation has a direct effect on your role, and you can still explain yourself. So don't worry about that. The last part, which is kind of fun, well, not fun, but maybe awkward, I don't know, depends how you look at it, is the drug testing. I'll never forget when I first started my business back in 2000, I'm like, I'm going to do like all the background checks right at the beginning. And because I didn't know really that you don't do it at the beginning. But I remember every one of them that came into my office, drug test, drug test, drug test, drug test. And, it was kind of awkward. And by the way, some people didn't show up to meet with me because I would tell them, by the way, when you come to meet with me, I'm sending you in for a drug test. And some people would not show up. Anyway, I don't do that anymore right now. But firms do drug testing, not all of them. And you guys are going to know again because in the application and background check, there's a big old huge release, right? So if you're looking for a job, guys, if you're like job hunting and you're looking for a job, just kind of keep the recreational activities, on hold for a bit. Like, just use your common sense because you just don't really want to be in a situation that you get a positive drug testing and like you don't know what you're going to say. So just kind of hold off on it for a couple of months. I'm not going to sit there and comment on my views and on that, but if you're looking for a job, guys, personal homework needs to be done and kind of stay off on that. I'll never forget actually what happened years ago at a firm that I worked. I was there and I heard the manager speak that they did a drug test on this one girl and it came back positive for marijuana. And I remember doing my work. I was like 22 years old. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen to her? And I heard them talking. And they said, you know what? Let's call her on it. If she's honest and she's like, okay, well, okay, maybe I did that. We'll give her another chance and we'll give her another drug test in like 2 weeks. But if she lies about it, we're going to, let her loose. I was like in my head saying, I would certainly lie. I would not admit for a positive drug test. But it was interesting how the employer looked at it. It was interesting. So, people are on medication. Now in today's era, marijuana is legal in a lot of states. So there are a lot of ways to justify that and you can just preempt it and let them know. But honestly, if you can, just avoid it. All right, guys, just avoid it. And not all firms do such a thorough screen. These thorough screens tend to be with very large firms. So again, it's up to you. If you've got issues with your credit and your criminal and the drug thing, maybe you guys need to think about your job search and stick with the smaller companies. All right, guys? So hopefully that kind of gives you a little insight. And remember, it's not going to be a surprise. Anything that is important, anything that I need to know that's going to ultimately help you, especially when it comes to criminal credit, let me know. I right away let my client know. And again, if you're dealing with a big firm, you let the recruiter know. Usually that's all they need, and it does not go beyond that because really it's confidential information. If it is a factor, another confidential information will be conducted, and then they'll determine if your skill set is so good they may be okay with it. They may make an exception, okay? This is about honesty. This is about integrity. I'm a high believer to be transparent and to be honest from day one. Revi Goldwasser, job hunting expert. See you on the next slide.